Hey everyone, Bob from the Board Game Rundown here, and today we're going to give you the rundown on how to play LA-1, a new game coming from Trick or Treat Studios, designed by Richard Lanius, Taryn Kratz, and Pete Shirley. Now keep in mind this is a prototype, so there could be some changes in the final version, but after this video you should have a good idea of how the game works. LA-1 is a fully cooperative game for 1 to 5 players where you'll be taking on the role of a detective solving case in a post-apocalyptic city that was once Los Angeles. Each game you can decide to play as an individual case or play through cases in a campaign-style mode. The rulebook suggests starting with case 1, so that's where we're going to begin. You're going to start by putting the board down in the middle of the table and then shuffle all the different location cards, the decks individually, and place them on the appropriate spots on the board on the inside spaces, covering up the darkness side of each location. You're going to separate all the skill cards by location, shuffle them, and put them out in their appropriate locations. And then wherever you have room along the side of the board, you're going to place the passport tokens, the money, karma tokens, and the advanced skill cards. Shuffle the damage cards and the fate cards and keep them handy because you'll be using those quite a bit, especially those fate cards. All the orange clue tokens are going to go inside the orange bag, and the gray basic tokens will be going inside the gray bag. You're going to draw 3 basic tokens to populate the black market at the bottom of the board. Then, each player is going to take a player mat, choose one of the 5 asymmetrical characters, and take all of the bits associated with that character, including the character card, heat tokens, standee, and the deck of skill cards. Place your character standee in the starting location that is designated on your character card. You're also going to be gaining all of the starting items that are listed on your character card. Although keep in mind, some cases may have rules that override your starting loadout. Once the board and player setup is complete, you'll choose which case you'd like to play, take the case folder card out, and use the setup instructions inside to finish setting up your board. And that will tell you what darkness cards to add, where to place the plot tokens at the bottom of the board, and it will also tell you what your victory condition is for that case. The game is played over a series of rounds, each of which will have 3 phases and will continue until victory condition is met by solving the case or darkness closing in. Let's go over each of the phases. Phase 1 is the darkness phase. First, pass the lead investigator token to the player sitting clockwise at the table, but you can skip this part during the first turn of the game. Then, the lead investigator is going to draw the top card of the darkness deck and resolve it from top to bottom, completing each section before moving on to the next. Please note that in some sections you might see a 4+ icon, and those will only be resolved if your player count is 4 or higher. Anytime an effect says to advance the darkness, you're going to move the darkness marker up on the track. And every time you move past an icon, you're going to resolve that effect, and that can range from repopulating clue tokens on the locations, hitting plot tokens on there, which will trigger events on the case folder that will make the story progress even more, or the city will grow dark, which means you'll be taking one of your piles of cards and moving them over to the darkness side. If a location should need to go dark, and already is, instead, advance the darkness by 1. And that's going to bring us to phase 2. During which each investigator will take their individual turns of 2 actions. Each player board has a breakdown of all the actions available to you, and you may choose the same action twice. Use this phase to set yourself up for the investigation phase, which will follow. The phase 2 actions are as follows. You have the move action. You can move your investigator to any location. If you like to go to the City of Angels at the top, you must first discard a passport token. You may lay low. If you lay low, you're going to remove 1 heat token from the heat area of the board. If you're in the underworld, you get to remove 2. You can prepare. When you prepare, you're going to draw anywhere from 1 to 3 cards from the top of your skill deck. If your skill deck runs empty though, don't just automatically shuffle your discard pile. We'll come to how you do that later. Next up, you can visit the black market. You can, from any location in Old Angeles or Underworld, you may pay the appropriate price listed at the bottom of the board to purchase one of the available tokens. You may get a hot tip When you take a hot tip action, you're going to take the card on the top of the deck and you're going to move it to the bottom in a way trying to look for either an investigation card that might have a skill that you're better at, or to maybe get to a stakeout that are typically easier to resolve than the investigations are. You could attempt to bribe a contact, in which case you're going to pay 5 credits, and then depending on what section of Angela's that you are in, draw 3 cards from the top of the skill deck and choose one to add to your hand and put the other 2 at the bottom. And that's how you upgrade your investigator. Also, each location is going to have, most of them do, have specific actions that you can take, indicated by the little arrow there. And you can do those actions while you're in those locations. Let it be pay some money to gain some karma, take some heat to gain some money, pay money to gain passports, all different types of things. You can just look at the iconography on the board, and there's a pretty good breakdown in the book on how those are all explained. One of the other actions you can do is you can analyze a token. So as you collect these tokens with all these different icons on them, you will take actions to discard those tokens and then resolve the effects that are on there. And again, your player board has a really good breakdown of what all those tokens mean and what they do. And they're very handy and very important. So make sure you keep doing those. And while you're looking at your player board, you might notice there's a free action spot right up top. Those free actions can be done as many times as you want during phase 2 or 3 by any player. And they are very handy. And that is where you have the shuffle action. So if you ever run out of cards, or say the cards you want are in your discard pile and you want to get them back in your deck, you're going to take that shuffle free action and you're going to choose any location, turn that location dark, and then you'll get to shuffle your deck. So it's not free, it does cost you. So keep that in mind. You don't want to do it too willy-nilly there. You can trade with anybody at your location. You can trade any tokens that you might have except for heat tokens, because those are your heat, not your partner's heats. And you can also play resources, so items and ability cards from your hand. You can put those out into your cards and play section, which is also located at the top, and you can have those out. You can have up to 3 of each of those in play that you'll use to like activate and use as you're doing skill checks and things like that. After all the investigators have completed their 2 actions, you're going to proceed to phase 3, the investigations. And during this phase, you'll perform investigations or stakeouts, depending on where you're at, to help further the case. And during this phase, each investigator will only get to take 1 of the following actions. You can advance a case by turning in one of the orange clue tokens. You can investigate by drawing the top card that says investigation and then having somebody else, which we found it's way more fun to have somebody else read you the card, and you try to use a cool voice as you're doing it. Adds the drama to the story. But then that way you can't read ahead to see what your consequences may be for failing. You can rest. You can discard 2 of your face down damage cards that you have to get rid of them. And we'll go over damage here in a little bit. But if you just take the rest action, you can discard 2 of those face down cards. And you can also fight the darkness, where you can discard 2 karma tokens to take any deck that you've moved to the dark side and slide it back over to the light and make those locations a little bit more friendly again. Because as you notice, as you turn the locations dark, bad things will be happening as you try to go to those locations. So you're going to want to keep those decks on the light side as much as you can, so that it's you don't advance the darkness without wanting to or being ready for it. And then going to those locations will be more beneficial for you if you keep them on the light side. Once all the investigators have completed one of these actions, you're going to begin a new round starting with the darkness phase. The game is going to continue this way until the case is solved. The case solved condition, I should say, is met, or darkness closes in, the investigators lose. At this point, if you're not playing campaign style, you can just sort the numbered cards you pulled out during the game, put them back in numerical order so they're ready to play in the future. Otherwise, you're going to follow the campaign instructions on the inside of the case folder. Now that you have a basic understanding of how the game plays, I'm going to go over a little bit more of the minutia so you can understand some of the words I was talking about that you might not have grasped. Like heat, for instance. So heat is going to represent the pressure that the police, the angels, and the gangsters are putting on you and your colleagues as you're trying to do your job. So when you're instructed to add heat, you're going to take as many heat tokens as it said and place them into the heat location at the bottom of the board. If at any time you need to add heat and you cannot, you're going to increase the darkness +1 regardless of how many heat tokens you're unable to place out. Turning locations dark. When you turn a location dark, you're just sliding that deck to the outside of the board, revealing the dark inside of each location. And then, like I said, If you during the investigation phase, you can pay karma tokens to slide those back in. If you must slide a certain location dark and you cannot, advance the darkness +1. Burning cards. Well, if you're instructed to burn cards either through failing a skill check or something to that effect, you're going to take cards from the top of your deck and then put them straight into the discard pile. If you have to do that and you cannot, burn as many as you can and then advance the darkness +1 regardless of how many cards you are unable to burn. Damage. So when you're taking damage, you're going to draw 1 damage card and place it face down by your character. When you suffer your 3rd damage, that card will be placed face up. And now any writing and text on that card is going to apply to you. Sometimes you luck out and you say there's no effect and you get to get rid of that card, but sometimes you break a leg and now you move -1, which doesn't affect your moving about the board, but when you're facing a move skill challenge, you're going to have a -1 to your ability. The encounter decks. When they're talking about the encounter decks, we're just talking about the decks of cards that are at each location around the board. They're all very clearly labeled with the location at the top and also the location at the top and the bottom side as well. So it makes sorting them really easy because sometimes some card games that I've played, the font is so small and it's difficult to read. These should be, as long as the prototype stays true to the final version, very easy to read and sort those cards out into the appropriate locations. And they will also have icons at the bottom that will help you to guess what skills you might be encountering if you try to investigate that investigation. There are multiple use cards that are in your skill decks. As you go through your skill deck, you'll see that there's all types of skills with numbers on them, and I should have pulled one of these out sooner, but here we go. The Whisper Bike, for one, has a 3, a 2, and a 1. So it's just an item that I'm allowed to use 3 times before I have to get rid of it. So I'm going to place that card above my player board in the cards and play area, and then anytime I'm doing something appropriate for me to use that ability, I will then just rotate that card down to the next digit down. I'll rotate it back to the 1, and then once it goes to 0, I would just discard that card like normal, and then when I shuffle, that card will be back into my deck and hopefully ready to be used again. Skill upgrades. There's 4 types of skill upgrades. There are 3 decks that are specific to the different areas that you are in, and then there's a major skill deck placed on the outside of the board. And anytime you are to obtain a skill upgrade, you're going to draw 3 cards from the appropriate deck, choose one and add it straight to your hand, which is very nice. And then you're going to take the other 2 cards and put them back on the bottom of the deck, so if you do manage to get through that whole entire deck, you'll see those cards again at some point. And then finally, there's skill tests, which is one of the main mechanisms in this game. So as you're attempting skill checks, you might have a case that says, for example, test movement 4. And so you have cards in your hand. As the active player, you can play as many cards as you want that have movement on them. And that is going to add to your skill check. Any investigator at your location with you can add 1 card. And then there are some item cards that will allow people who aren't at your location to help you out with that skill test as well. But those will be very specific and they'll say on the card, reading the card explains the card, so it's very straightforward. Once you've played all the cards you'd like to play for that challenge, then you must go to the Fate deck. And the Fate deck is the randomizer that's going to change everything and see what the Fates have in store for you. So at first you'll flip the top card. Now this says Moxie 3. So if I was doing a Moxie challenge, that would be good because it would be adding to what I'm doing. But since that has no effect on this challenge I'm trying to do, it's no good for me. So if I look at my player ability, I do have a Moxie card here, icon, with an arrow. And that means that I can push past any Moxie card I draw that's not part of my skill check. If I don't want that card, I get to push past it for free, so I get to draw again. So I'm going to draw again. Hey, move +1, that's good. Now I'm at 3. I'm trying to get to 5. And now since I drew a successful card, I have to keep drawing again. Because if I succeed by too much, I'm going to draw some heat my way because I'm just showing off. So I'm going to draw another card. Ooh, Fate +1. So now I'm at 4, and it's a positive card, so I have to keep going. The Fate cards are like a wild. They're good for any skill you're going across, although there are some negative Fate ones because sometimes Fate don't go your way. So we have to draw again. Muscle +1. Well, that doesn't help me. I don't have anything else. I do have a movement +1 on my skill challenge, so technically I am at 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm at the 5, which is successful. I would succeed on this challenge, and then that would be the end of the skill check. I would then read the card and continue on the successful line and see what my reward would be. But let's say for existence, I was for 6, and that muscle is no good. You can spend fate tokens. You discard one of those, and that allows you to push past any card that you normally can't push past to draw another fate card. And then that's what the main use for those karma tokens. So those are very important because they are going to be helping you succeed on the skill checks where you might normally fail. And that's the majority of the game. And as you go through and you spend the orange tokens to work on these case cards that are the side of the board, eventually you're going to find the ones that say, oh, there's the wanted person you're looking for. It'll tell you to draw a card from, this one here says, draw a random number 52. So there'll be like 3 or 4 number 52 cards in that deck. I'll mix them up, pull one out, go through the challenge that it has listed, and as long as I succeed, we capture our fugitive and we'll gain the credits gained. And in this case, the main goal of it is to gain money. And so hopefully we gain enough money to put on our case card here that will allow us to win the game before darkness closes in. And like I said, that's pretty much the gist of the game. That should be enough to get you going. Hopefully you've enjoyed what you've seen here. If you do, please give us a like and a follow, subscribe, comment down below what you think. I like this noir style they got going on here, so hopefully you do too. And from the Board Game Rundown, I've been Bob.
If you can say the title's only 3 words.